So, welcome to this year's HPCC conference. Last night, somebody asked me, how many such conferences have we had? And it struck me that this is the third conference that I have participated in, that I have helped organize. It's really Flavio that organizes these things with Trish. And it's also the third conference that we've had since we open sourced the HPCC, right? Which begs the question, given that it's been 3 years since we open sourced the HPCC, how should we measure the success of HPCC open source? Because as you might imagine, that's a question that I get asked from time to time. And Flavio is going to speak after me, so I won't steal his thunder because he's got lots of metrics on the HPCC. But I'll at least give you a flavor of the kinds of things that we thought about when we started thinking about how do we measure our success, right? We could measure it based on the number of HPCC downloads. We could talk about the number of contributions, code contributions, and these could be defects, it could be bug reports, it could be bug fixes, it could be ideas. The number of users in the community forum, the amount of HPCC license revenue to the extent that someone's counting that kind of thing. We could talk about the number of HPCC installations outside of risk and read Elsevier. And by the way, that's hard to do because we deliberately reduce the barrier, lower the barrier to adoption by not asking people to register. So there are many times when people come out of the woodwork and ask us a fairly complex and sophisticated ECL question, and we realize that somebody's downloaded and has been using it for the last year, and we don't even know about it, which is actually a good thing in a strange kind of way. The performance of the terabyte sort, which is not really a measurement of HPCC OSS so much as a comparison between HPCC and something else, but it's also not a bad metric. Employee satisfaction scores within Lexis. Sometimes we grasp at straws. So the number of universities that adopt HPCC. Right? I could go on. The number of attendees at this conference, the number of external speakers at this conference, and there are several of you sitting at the tables over there. Financial performance of risk and RE, because we've always been proud of the fact that HPCC as a piece of technology is one of the primary drivers of the success of our company. Or is it none of the above? And the fact is, many of those metrics that I just talked about show a positive trend. We do track those things. If they had shown a negative trend, I might be tempted to say none of the above, but because they show a positive trend, I feel like there must be something to those metrics. I think they're not bad. But in the end, it is some of those things in some measure, but it comes down to more ideas and more innovation. And that is, after all, the reason why we open sourced the HPCC, right? Because we wanted to spur more ideas and more innovation and continue to keep the HPCC relevant, and not just relevant, but a very powerful platform as opposed to a secret, right? So we are generating more ideas, and we are receiving more ideas from the community. It's a culmination of what we set out to do, and it's an ongoing process, right? So those of you who are here tomorrow and day after will see some amusing videos with the topic Age of Acronyms as the topic this year. Every year we have a video contest. That topic wasn't chosen by accident. The number of acronyms that have been spawned over the last 2-3 years as a function of these ideas and these innovations that have been generated collectively by you, the community, internally and externally, is what's causing this proliferation of acronyms, which is, of course, just symptomatic of the real issue or the real benefit of what we've been doing over the last few years. And so it was time to ask ourselves, why is this idea proliferation happening as an act of self-introspection? And I think it can be attributed to the fact that we've built a small but very active HPCC community within risk and within read Elsevier and beyond read Elsevier. And that's important because a small but active community, to me, is infinitely preferable to large, not very active, right? The members that participate in our forum, that send us questions, that call us and provide ideas, they all are passionate about the HPCC. The speakers who have come here today, they're passionate about the HPCC. And I think the thing that bonds them is, I use this phrase often called evolution to simplicity. It's not necessarily a phrase that's unique. I think everybody likes the notion of having simple architectures and simple platforms that are easily maintainable and that are lower cost. I think one of the tenets of the HPCC right from its inception was to have simplicity at its core. And the members of the community that first of all got attracted to the HPCC saw some there was some appeal in that simplicity, right? And I think the common bond that is in the community today is because they want to perpetuate and continue that simplicity by throwing in ideas that perpetuate that notion. So, and the reason why simplicity is important, it certainly is cost, but part of my day job is to make sure that our systems are stable, uptime is very high, and that our customers are satisfied. And when you have a complex platform, it's very hard to do that. And the HPCC, I think, is instrumental. It's one of the linchpins of our architecture, and hopefully many more people realize that as well, right? So that's one of the bonds that tie us together in the community. When we open sourced the HPCC, the goal always was to have a symbiotic relationship with the community. It was partly, obviously, for the community to benefit from HPCC open source, and partly for Read Elsevier and LexisNexis to benefit from the community's contributions. And I think as this relationship evolves, hopefully in the not too distant future, the HPCC conference is going to be one where Read Elsevier and LexisNexis is going to be invited to speak as an external speaker, right? That'll be the goal one of these days. So, this goal is being realized. Every year there's been improvements. So when we look at the speakers at this conference, just 3 years ago, we had 1 external speaker. Last year, we had 5 external speakers. And this year, we've got 15. And we didn't have to look very hard to find 15 speakers. What's amazing about these 15 speakers is that these are not people who are twiddling their thumbs, waiting by the phone, asking to be invited to a conference. These are extremely busy and talented people. We've got professors of computer science and computer engineering. We've got PhD students and data scientists. We've got founders of startups and companies with impeccable academic credentials. These are very smart people, very busy people. So I want to give them a round of applause for coming over here and giving us some of the valuable time. So I started off this little presentation by talking about some of the metrics and year-over-year comparisons, right? So just a few more data points. That's a picture from 2012. That's David Bayless, chief data scientist who was holding up 2 of his many patents. I think he's got about 30 or 40 to his name. And we're congratulating him for having received those patents. In 2013, that's Richard Chapman giving Flavio an award for some exemplary work that he'd done in pursuing community adoption. And that's me looking wistfully in both pictures, wondering when I'm going to get one of those awards. But my point is we've done a good job over the last few years of congratulating ourselves, and that's as it should be, because there is much to congratulate ourselves about. But this year, I think it's all about you. It's to you, the congratulations go to you, the internal and the external community. So give yourselves another round of applause. You've done great work, right? When we open sourced the HPCC initially, we launched this website, hpccsystems.com. And let's face it, we're a bunch of geeks, and we don't really create slick websites with fantastic content. So the first attempt at creating a website was hit or miss. The content was there, but it wasn't presented in the best possible way. But I think in 2013, we started making it better. We came to our senses, we got some outside help. We started thinking about what's more appealing, what do developers, what does the community really want to see. We added tutorials, we added courses, we even translated some of those courses with the help of some of our partners. And so it started looking better. And this year, we tapped some hidden talents. And what I'm going to show you is a very short video clip. It's a 2-minute video clip that shows one of our best ECL developers. And you would be forgiven for looking at this video and thinking that we hired an actor and gave her a script because she's that articulate. The fact is it's the reverse. Very impressive ECL developer who happens to have possibly a second calling as an actor.
So what is HPC Systems and why should you care? Well, it's basically a cluster of computers, anywhere from 2 to 1,000 plus, that are built from commodity off-the-shelf hardware and work together as one to process and deliver big data. It has 3 main components. The first is the data refinery engine, Thor. And this is where you do the heavy lifting of big data. You clean it, You merge it and transform it, do your profiling and analysis, and prepare it for use by end-user queries. The refinery handles huge amounts of data really efficiently, and depending on the data you're dealing with, a cluster of 500 nodes can crunch through a petabyte of data in less than 10 seconds. The second component is the data delivery engine, Roxy, which serves up the prepared data from the refinery. Now, while the refinery is configured to run 1 or 2 processes against very large amounts of data, the delivery engine cluster is designed to return thousands of concurrent queries against that data. Think of it this way. The refinery catalogs all the stars in the sky, and the delivery engine returns you a single star out of billions. You don't have to tell ECL how to do something, just what you want it to do. ECL can let you read in a file, sort it, dedupe it, group it and summarize it, redistribute the data on the fly across the cluster, join it to a lookup table for better performance, and output the result, all in 5 lines of code. So what's in it for you?
Ray, lead software engineer, so did a great job. And she should be in the audience somewhere. I didn't tell her I was going to do that, so she's probably frightfully embarrassed by the fact that I put out there like that. But that's an example of some of the things that we've started doing much more effectively to spread the word about the HPCC and its capabilities and its potential. Right? So another example of how we progressed. So in closing, we are very particular about who MCs, who's the master of ceremonies of this show. Last year it was Jesse Shaw, and he set a very high bar. He did a great job. And so when we chose the MC for this year, when we set about finding the MC, we looked high and low. We had lots of auditions, there were several rejections, a few tears. And as you know, we find only the best looking people to serve as our MC. So this year, we found our man, it's Ken Kurzweil. So I welcome him here on stage.
Thank you, sir. Do to advance the slide. All right. Good morning, everyone. Before I get started, guys in the back, there's plenty of seats up front. Don't be scared. Got plenty of seats in the front few tables, so make your way to the front. No, seriously. Thank you very much, Vijay. Truly an honor to be serving as the MC for the conference here. I look out in the audience today and see people that are involved in all facets of HPCC, developers, architects, infrastructure, QA, partners, users, and really the community at large, both here in the room and also watching live stream online, which today's conference is being broadcast. So welcome to everyone. We've got a tremendous lineup for you over the next few days. Today's focus is really going to be about HPCC use cases. We've got a great lineup of external speakers, as Vijay showed on the earlier slide. So we're going to have, I think it's about 14 different presenters today, so you'll be pretty sick of me by the end of the day coming up and down the stage. But really cool stuff, learn what they're doing with HPCC across a variety of different industries. So really looking forward to that. A few housekeeping items before we get started with the agenda, some do's and don'ts. Do, mingle and network, right? So lots of people here, people you don't see or work with on a day-to-day basis. Try to go out of your way to meet some people. Talk about how you're using HPCC, learn about what they're doing. Don't interact with your own group. You know, I know there's people here with your team, you're very comfortable with them, but try to stray just a little bit outside your comfort zone if that's what you normally do. Ask questions. Time permitting, at the end of each presentation, we will have time for questions in the main session. But if we don't, plenty of time for questions during breaks, evening activities, and of course, once the conference ends, email, IM, pick up the phone. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions that you may or may not get to ask over the next 3 days. Don't spend all your time checking email. I know it's very tempting. Everyone's got their iPhones. Some still have BlackBerries. Try not to check your email too much. I know there's stuff going on. The business is still going. But try to focus as much as you can on the content we have for you today. I think you'll find it well worth it. Dive in. I truly think you'll get out of the conference what you put into it. So be engaged in the conference. Pay attention. Again, ask questions. Don't sleep too much. So I think we did a good job last night. I know a lot of you were out late. I saw some of you early in the gym, so I think we're doing a good job of not sleeping too much. I need to keep that up the next few days and make sure we're not missing out on any opportunities. Be on time. The agenda is very packed if you've looked at your schedule. So we're going to be taking some breaks throughout the day. The breaks will be about 15 minutes, but try to get back here a few minutes before that. That's up because we are going to be prompt and start on time. And don't be a slacker, right? So don't hang out in your room, don't sleep late, don't mingle out in the hall when the session is going. We've got a lot going on, and I really want everyone to be here as much as possible. Okay, a few other things before we get started with our first speaker. When we come back from breaks, we're going to be doing some trivia questions for some fabulous prizes. We're going to have two questions. So when we come back from break, the first question will be about the content from the previous speakers. So pay attention. There will be a question about the content from the slides. The second question will be general trivia. Why? Just because I like it. So music, entertainment, sports, and anything's up for grabs. Science fiction. So for those of you that aren't paying attention, you still could win a prize just based on your knowledge. All right, so let's get started with our first speaker. He has been with LexisNexis for about 12 years. I should know because I started right around the same time as him. And he's been heading up HPCC systems for the past 2.5 years. He is one smart guy. Seems he knows a little bit about everything, whether it's big data, security, infrastructure, medicine, astronomy, heavy metal music, almost anything. But he does have one weakness. The guy knows nothing about sports. Nothing. So if you ever want to feel smart, ask him about last night's game, and he'll clueless. So the entertainment world has their one name people. Elton, Sting, Madonna, Prince. Big data has Flavio. So ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Flavio Villanustre.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good? Yeah, okay, good. So, yeah, he's right. I'm absolutely clueless. So if you want to have me puzzled, just ask me anything about sports, and I'll be there just drooling, trying to figure out what you're talking about. Anyway, let's get this started. So after the energetic introduction from Vijay and a good emceeing from Ken, we'll drill into the community, the strategy, and a little bit of the roadmap for the next year, and bring some of the highlights that I think are quite important to this conference. Let's get it started. You may know, many of you may know already, that these are the main pillars of our strategy. We have a company that supports us. Real Elsevier has been behind and supporting HPCC and the entire open source initiative since the very beginning. We have a community of partners. We have an open source community and a group of partners that are also actively engaged trying to help push HPCC. And they are doing this in different ways, from basic research, basic and applied research, to building new solutions for customers, to developing new documentation, translating documentation to other languages, and a number of other initiatives. And as Vijay pointed out, this is still our vision. We want to drive the adoption of HPCC. We want to ensure that HPCC maintains its relevance, and it's still a very viable alternative to many other big data solutions. And it has a good set of strengths in a number of areas that are core to what HPCC can do very well. And we will cover some of those when we see the roadmap slide. And of course, the big win from the open source initiative is the fact that we can really re-up on the innovation and the ideas and the collaboration that the open source community can bring to HPCC. So we have 5 areas that we will cover pretty much in this few slides. We will talk about the platform roadmap milestones, and I will be highlighting some of these. So we will talk about what is coming in the future, and Keep in mind, I know many of these initiatives because several of them are developed within LexisNexis and Riddle Elsevier. Several of them are developed by partners, and some others are developed by our academic community. Now, there may be things that are happening today that we don't know about, and that is okay. It's an open source project, so anyone can do whatever they want with HPCC, and at the end, all these things still help the overall community. I will cover also the academic initiatives, and we will see a little bit of the progress that we made over the last year, which has been significant. We will go through some of the academic people that we have. Many of these are in this room, but we have many more that couldn't make it to this room. Some of those because they had other commitments, some of them because we told them that we didn't have any more space. And as you can see, every table is taken. We have still a couple of chairs here, probably people that have been drinking too late last night. The open source community and the strategy in that, the helping foster adoption growth, and we will talk about partners and how they are helping us in areas where we might not put any effort because we are focused on our own business or on some other strategic areas in HPCC, and even in geographies where we don't have much of a reach either, and we will cover some of that. And last but not least, research and development. We have a large number of people working for different entities that are contributing to developing new solutions on HPCC, doing basic and applied research, and many other initiatives that extend the platform and its capabilities. So, just a little bit of community growth and history. Some of you have been, well, many of you have been here last year, well, not here, in Marriott in Delray Beach in South Florida. Yeah, I know, that was a better location, right? The ocean. Anyway, so if you remember, we talked about the community at the time, and we did have a significant number of already external people and academics, but this community has been growing, and the size of the pie represents the area of the pie represents the community, and the community has been growing, and you can see that the slice of the pie that represents internal HPCC users decreased, not because it's any smaller, this is us, and we continue to grow as a company, it is because the larger slice of a pie, which is external, has been growing. And it has been growing very rapidly. And if sometimes looking at the single pie chart doesn't tell you much about the size of the community, but it has been growing significantly. And if you look at the numbers on top, we went from 1,700 registered users. Unfortunately, this is as good as a metric as you can have because we don't force anyone to register into our portal, to 2,500 registered users. This is a significant increase over the last year, and these are active users. These are not spammers or users that just register and go away, because eventually we will purge those users. This is really people working and using HPCC. We can also look at the growth in our new user portal visits. Look at this hockey stick type of curve. This was 2010, well, 2013, sorry, at the beginning, and this is 2014 now, and you can see that we went from 3,400 new users to 24,000 new users over a year period. So this is a significant increase too. And this is, I think, pushed by different parts of this initiative. Of course, we have a significant a strategy on outreaching to the market and getting more people on HPCC, and we do awareness campaigns, and we do training, and we do a number of activities trying to expand our reach outside of our current limits. But it's also that many of our partners are doing the same thing. So we are getting the multiplier effect by partners and community, academic community and community in general, that are pushing HPCC across their own boundaries. And you will hear a talk from one of our speakers later today who founded and pushed our first meetup group in the West Coast. And he did that all on its own. And you can see also international visits. You can see that the number of visits from other countries has also increased, and I don't have the absolute numbers here, but you can also get an idea of which countries are sending the most amount of traffic. And of course, India is the biggest slice, but it's followed quickly by the United Kingdom and China as the other dominant portions of those external countries sending traffic to HPCC as well. And these are some of the places in the internet where we have HPCC content. This is SourceForge. Many of you developers might have used SourceForge in the past. This is the page for HPCC. This is the Rosetta code. If you don't know Rosetta code is a pretty good place where you can find snippets of code from different languages. And they have some generic algorithms that people go and just code in their favorite language and show how this can be done across the board, and find from the most common languages to the most exotic ones. We have ECL as a category in Rosetta code, and we have a number of code snippets. Thank you to many of the community members that have participated and already provided code there. I mentioned other geographies, and this is the OS China, one of the open source portals in China that has HPCC content. I don't speak Chinese. I can't read it. I hope this is something that doesn't say anything bad. But you can see that, that there is a number of things that happen even without us pushing them. This happens because the community naturally develops things around HPCC because they like it, because they use it. Well, speaking about the platform roadmap, we will have another session, I believe tomorrow, on more specific details on the roadmap. But I'll give you a little bit of an overview of where we are going towards in the next few quarters and what are the most strategic milestones that we expect to make in HPCC. And I try to divide this into what are specifically platform features, and you have them at the top, and those start with the version. The current stable version is 5.02, and that's available today. You can go and download it if you haven't already. But we expect to have version 5.2 by the end of the year, and we expect to have version 6.0 next year. As you remember, the major versions might imply significant capability enhancements and code development. The minor versions might imply bug fixes and perhaps minor capability enhancements. So today we have 5.02. 5.02 includes a number of capabilities, and some of these capabilities are inside the platform. Some of those are just enabling external components to work better or faster or to be more feature-rich. And to Vijay's credit, some of the acronyms that you see here are some of the new initiatives that we have. And I won't attempt to cover every one of these acronyms in this talk. It would be too long if I did that. But we have a number of projects that are developing capabilities that we didn't have, or maybe we had, but it was very difficult to build if you just used ECL to build them. One of those is Scale. And David Baylis, who has been here last night and today, I saw him this morning, there you go. David has been instrumental in developing a new language to express knowledge engineering. And this goes beyond what ECL does. For you that know ECL, you know that ECL deals with records and data sets and fields in records. Well, this is a great language. It's a very succinct language. It's a language that allows you to tell the computer what to do rather than how to do it, and the computer takes care of it. But it's not the best language if we are trying to develop some sophisticated knowledge engineering algorithms. You will take quite a bit of effort in doing that, and it will mean that you will need to be building and maintaining a code base that is probably quite large. So David came up with the idea of building a new language on top of ECL to bring up the abstraction layer to a level much closer to the person dealing with problems that require knowledge engineering. And again, there are a number of sessions. You will see some of these sessions later today, so I won't spoil the bank there. But this is a truly disruptive enhancement and an improvement across HPCC. And this is possible just because the HPCC platform renders itself as the great platform for this type of activities. Hippie dude, I won't get into the details there, and we have, I think, the little dude walking there. There you go. This is a new platform to support some of this knowledge engineering in a way that is easier for people that don't have coding skills to deal with. People that are perhaps knowledgeable enough to have a good understanding of a problem and the potential solution, but has no coding skills. Those people can now do some of the things that they need to do by leveraging this hippie dude platform with something that is called DSP. And I won't get into what these acronyms mean. We built a number of algorithms, and John Holt, who is around the room now, there you go, John, he has been also instrumental in building the support for ARIMA, autoregression, for those that are used to dealing with time series and data that evolves in cycles. Well, ARIMA is a good way to predict the next cycle or the next group of cycles, and now we have support in HPCC. And every time we build support for any of these things in HPCC, we leverage the infrastructure that we built underneath to do this for very large data and also very fast. SALT. Many of you who have heard about SALT, which is the linking platform on top of HPCC, well, SALT has a number of capabilities around data integration, around data linking, and now it has capabilities around data analytics, this slicing and dicing of data, the ability to do in real time, grouping and filtering. This is what is called score search, and there will be more talks about that later, so I won't get much in details there. And then a number of other capabilities that have been developed mostly for the community. For example, some of our academic partners in Clemson have developed support for HPCC in their HPC cluster, Palmetto. Palmetto is one of the fastest clusters in the nation. I don't remember now the position across the clusters, but I think in the HPC benchmarks was number 15 or so, and I think in the world. Apache VCL support by our partners at NC State, and a number of other capabilities that we built over the last release, 5.02. And coming down the road, a number of new capabilities. We are adding more in terms of machine learning. We will be adding more in terms of knowledge engineering. We will be adding more in graph processing, and a number of user interfaces that will be building up on this type of capabilities to expose them in a way that humans that don't have coding skills, or humans that want to access information from the data, but they don't have the ability to do the slicing and dicing themselves, they can access it readily. This is the next level. This is the only way we and people can, in general, scale data scientists. Otherwise, they would be depending on a very, very scarce and difficult to get resource. Community activity. A number of initiatives many of you are probably familiar with, many of you might not know, depending on how close you are to this type of activities. But we have been providing a number of grants. We provided almost $500,000 in grants to academics and researchers over the last year. We have an incipient but a growing, rapidly growing internship program. We had in the last summer about 30 interns across the company in technology, and we are growing that number. And we get not just a growing number because the people in our company realize the value of this internship program, but also because other people outside of the company that are in academic environments want to participate because they heard the experience from their peers. So this is a great experience for us. This is a great way for us to find talent and also spread HPCC across the board. A number of information sessions and seminars, and we have now a very good and well-developed ambassadorship program. Many of you are already involved in it. Those ambassadors are taking speaking opportunities across the board and spreading HPCC. And if you are interested in joining this program, well, we, of course, encourage you to join and help us as well spread the word. And by the way, last night someone else already said that he would like to participate too. We have developed a full online training program. Just 2 years ago, we used to do training face-to-face only. We had classroom-based training, and our trainers were going around the world trying to train people 10 or 12 at a time. And yes, our trainers still go around the world and still train 10 or 12 people at a time when they do the classroom training, but they are doing now also online training. And online training not just through WebEx or web-based sessions, but also fully developed massive open online courses on HPCC. This includes basic training on HPCC, advanced training in ECL and ROXY, and even SALT training. And the content for KALE is being developed as we speak. So knowledge engineering will have also its own training content in the online system. And we are working with extending curriculum for some universities. Some of this material and some of these trainers have been engaged with several universities, helping develop also programs in big data and HPCC-oriented programs across their curricula as well. Some of those for credit, some of those not for credit. And of course, courses and workshops, and this depends on the opportunities, and many times there are some courses on big data that we can participate on from societies like IEEE or ACM, sometimes in universities, sometimes in other environments, and even publications. And I have here Journal of Big Data, and I forgot to include the Big Data Research, which is the Elsevier journal as well. So in those we have we continuously have activity around spreading the word there as well. And these are some of our academic partners as well, and many of them are here today. FAU and Professor Borko is here, Borko Fur, Clemson, Professor Amy Apon, Georgia Tech, NC State, Carnegie Mellon, University of Florida, Wayne State, Kennesaw, SPSU, and a number of others that I couldn't even include in this slide, otherwise it would get too congested. This is just one of them, Kennesaw. Kennesaw is developing a for-credit and non-for-credit program on HPCC certification. This is great to see happening from the outside, from someone that is not within Real Elsevier or LexisNexis, that is pushing HPCC and trying to develop content and even official certification programs around it. The number of academic initiatives have also sparked a number of users in the academic community that are using HPCC and are in order to use it, they learn through our online training. This also brings people to know ECL. It is definitely a part of the strategy to increase the awareness across the board on HPCC and to build talent that is readily available, not just for us to take advantage of when the time comes, but also for our partners. This helps the community as well grow in a pretty balanced way. A number of industry and other events, and I am there in Wayne University. We have Dinesh there as well. And of course, all the other roadmap and non-roadmap type of contributions that we get, and many of those are in GitHub. Again, it's only those that tell us that they are doing things. Many times we have people that have been using HPCC for months or years, and we just find out because they become curious or they have a problem they can't solve. But if any of you know of anyone using HPCC that haven't said it, please tell them that I will be more than happy to get them to tell us and give us their story. We are developing a program that we call Speak Up, which will encourage people in the community to provide their experience with HPCC. And we are doing cool prizes, and I think that's going to motivate some people to give their experience, explain why they use HPCC, how they use it, and what it does for them. This is good also for everyone else. And of course, a number of papers that we have got accepted and published in different environments. More, and I won't get into all the details, but I mentioned the meetup in the West Coast that Fujio has organized and continues to drive, but a number of other meetups across everywhere in the US, really. The massive open online courses, the media articles around HPCC, and more and more and more. We have also developed, we don't stay stalled, and we got the message clear from Vijay when he said that our HPCC portal was a little bit of a mesh of wires and access points to different content, but it wasn't well organized. And yes, we are geeks, we are not market developers, but we did hear this feedback, and we built a completely new and revamped portal. This is how it will look like, the new portal, when we release it. This will be released in the next couple weeks. We have revamped all the content on the portal. We changed the layout. We believe that we made it a lot more accessible. We went through studies in market research, and Christina, who is here in the audience as well, she can give you some of the information on how we listen to the community to build the portal in a way that is a lot more efficient and effective to access information from HPCC and collaborate as well. A number of partners in industry that have been helping us all along, companies like, well, Comrise, and we have several of them here. We will be talking later today. Infosys, Cognizant, L&T Infotech, Micron, Genpact, Arnet, again here too, and a number of others. Content of HPCC that we translated, as a matter of fact, Comrise did a very good job in translating content about HPCC and our online training to Chinese. They have been working actively developing their own Chinese community, and helped by translating a lot of this content into Mandarin. They also, and Comrise is quite active lately, they also got a patent in, well, and you will listen to them later today, so you will hear all about it, in a new product that they developed, all based on HPCC, to better fit candidates to jobs. And I won't say more about this. Rob will say it later. So, what are the takeaways? Well, and these are the, I think, the most important things that you can do to help with this initiative. The vision, I think it's clear by now. I'm not going to repeat it, and I will repeat it at the end of the conference in a couple of days, in the last presentation. But there are a number of things that you can do to help us. Many of these things might just be doing what you do, well, and a little bit more with HPCC. Some of these might be just going a little bit out of your way to help push HPCC, maybe help with the ambassadorship program and talking conferences, maybe help translate some documentation to some other language, maybe help write documentation in something, maybe develop a little piece of capability that you can release as a bundle, maybe help us bring your peers to HPCC as well, if you're in an environment where your peers use some other technology. Maybe just let us know if there are events in your area or any other places where we could have some showcase of HPCC and perhaps present some of our content as well. Of course, if you haven't yet and you are curious or you would like to know how to do things, well, leverage our online training. Just go to the online training page from our portal, just from the comfort of your couch, when you are at home watching TV, and try to learn something new. There is a lot of content there, again, from the very basic, that doesn't assume anything about prior knowledge, up to the very advanced content on how to develop a specific algorithms on top of HPCC. And all these available online, so use it. There are exercises that you can use to learn. There is data that you can use to also play with. and a number of other resources that are quite handy when you're trying to do some learning on a new area like this. And of course, if you have been using HPCC and you haven't told us before, well, tell us how you're using it. Tell us what you do. Tell us why you pick HPCC over anything else. Tell us what your experience was with some other platforms. Tell us what's needed, what is not there yet that you would like to see. We'd love to hear that. Many times we define roadmap items in our roadmaps. We think that this is what the community wants to go. And sometimes we hear that that's not needed. Maybe something that we thought was high priority might not be that important, but there may be something else that could be important. So we can always reprioritize. And of course, there are always people looking to do something to help, and they may be looking for a project. So if you have something that you'd like to get done, well, let us know. There may be someone there that wants to help and might get that done quite quickly. We, I mentioned before, we have developed this contest. This is our Speak Up program. This is trying to bring developers and users in general that have been using HPCC for some time and want to tell us why they are using HPCC, how they are using it, what's good about it or what's bad about it. Well, speak up. Tell us what you're using it for, and you may enter in a contest and win a couple of very good prizes. We have Google Glasses, we have a camera, and a bunch of other stuff that will be raffled across the winners there. And we plan on continuing to do this every few months to bring more and more use cases. Knowing how people use HPCC help us better know what we should prioritize in our roadmap as well, and what we should focus on, and which other capabilities might be available out there that we didn't suspect either. Well, and last but not least, and this is probably one of the most important portions of this presentation, is the next guest speakers. We have a large number of speakers coming today. Many of them traveled quite a bit to get here, some from the West Coast, some from the Northeast. So we are really, really, really grateful that you made the effort. We know how hard it is to take time away from your busy schedules and come to do this. But we know that this is extremely important for everyone else here in the room. Learning what other people are doing and knowing how they use HPCC, the experience that they have had, and what is out there that can be leveraged by others is also very, very important to us. And this doesn't mean to be a list in any particular order, other than a little bit of the sequencing. But we will have John Andleman that will be speaking right after me. He'll be presenting some very interesting use case in his company, in Citrix. Fujio, who is the person that organized our West Coast meetup group. He will be talking about his experience on HPCC and some of the cool ideas that he has around 3D JSON and ECL pipes and other things. I won't spoil the bang there. A number of people from Comrise that will be talking about right fit and a number of other capabilities that they developed on this product to better fit employees or candidates to jobs. Tony and Luck, they have been in our office just last week, talking about how they use HPCC for a healthcare initiative that they are developing. So this is another very interesting talk. Mohammed, who has been collaborating with us for quite some time now, for probably almost 2 years, in different aspects of research and applied research on HPCC. And he will tell us a little bit of what he has been doing so far and some of the things that he will be also planning on doing in the next year or so. Professor Furr and Victor, they are in FAU. They have been instrumental in both developing the community in Florida Atlantic University, but also developing some of the machine learning capabilities that we have. Things like decision trees and random forests and Bayes and other algorithms have been developed by Victor over the last couple of years, and he will be telling us a little bit more about that. Professor Free from NC State, and Dr. Vuk as well, who is the head of computer science, are here. They joined us last night too. And Vince will be talking about his experience in getting HPCC integrated with VCL. VCL is the cloud platform that NC State and other universities use to deploy software in their environments. Professor Apon and Professor Ngo and Mike Payne, who is a PhD candidate, will be telling us about their experience in Clemson using HPCC. And there is some good work that Link has been doing, getting HPCC to run as a completely user space application in their Palmetto cluster. I mentioned before, Palmetto is one of the top supercomputers in the world, and getting support of HPCC as a user space program in Palmetto helps also people using Palmetto and other environments like that to develop applications on HPCC without going through the effort of asking the administrators to deploy HPCC in those environments, which is quite hard. So a bunch of very good external speakers coming in the next few hours, and then we will have also a couple of internal speakers closing the sessions later tonight, and those are great talks too. So try to stay alert, stay tuned, and just look forward to all this new and exciting content today. Thank you. Any questions? Questions? I think it's too early for questions. Oh, there's a question. Oh, very good.
So, are there any plans to give demo versions of Salt that are open source? Then, what is the status?
Good question, Nick. Nick is he has been in our community for a few years now. He owns a company that develops machine learning algorithms and platforms. And he's asking us if there are any plans to develop an open source offering of Salt. And if that's the case, what's the roadmap there and when we will be doing that? Well, at this point, we don't have any plans to make Salt open source. As many of you know, and for those who don't know, Salt is a programming language. It's a declarative programming paradigm on top of HPCC. Salt uses a much more succinct and descriptive set of declarations to specifically tailor those that are trying to do data integration. It focuses on taking data sets that are quite disparate and bringing them together, and doing that using something that is called probabilistic linkage. If none of this makes sense to you, don't worry. For those that it makes sense, Salt is a great solution to do data integration, and it does it even though you might not have unique identifiers or keys to do this integration. Now, Salt is quite key to our own technology in LexisNexis. This is the way we we build data services that are far superior than many of our competitors. So it is a clear core differentiator. At this point, it would be probably premature to think of releasing Salt as an open source initiative on top of HPCC. We do have the ability to provide Salt as a demo if we are working with, and we have done this with some of our partners as well, providing Salt when they are doing, for example, basic research. Now, we wouldn't like Salt to be completely open, and our competitors in the data business become also enabled by the same technology. This is a clear differentiator that we have today. It is a little bit of a hard call to say, well, we are going to open source it and let everyone else play in the data business at the same level of capabilities in linking. Now, definitely, if there are projects that are around linking for basic or applied research, if there is interest to develop new capabilities on top of something like Salt, if there is interest, just curiosity to try to see how it works, we are more than glad to provide demo versions or to arrange in some way the use of Salt for these cases, and we have done that several times. But it's not something that we plan on releasing open source today. Now, Could we be releasing open source Salt later down the road? Sure. There is nothing preventing us from doing that, but it's not in our plan in 2014. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
All right. Good job. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Flavio. Really amazing to see in just 3 short years of open sourcing how much we've grown in terms of all the statistics Flavio shared with us, the number of users, downloads, just the growth of the community, the growth of our partners. It's really good stuff. So thanks, Flavio. Also, it sets the stage for the rest of today and the speakers that we'll be seeing about the external use cases of HPCC. So our first speaker, he is a staff database engineer at Citrix Systems. He's been analyzing big data for many years across a variety of different industries. And like many of us, subscribes to the old adage of finding solutions that are BFC, or better, faster, and cheaper. In his current role, he's worked with a variety of big data platforms, including Hadoop and HPCC, to deliver critical analytics at Citrix for such well-known products as GoToMeeting. He's also a founding member of the HPCC Systems Community Advisory Board. So please welcome John Andleman.
Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about some of the great things we've been doing with big data at Citrix and how software from HPC Systems has helped us. And I'm going to tell you about the journey I've been taking. And this is not about the journey from Los Angeles to Atlanta, but it's more like the journey from figuring out what kind of a big data problem we had and how we were going to deal with it. So the journey also brought me into the HPCC fan club. And to keep my employer happy, I need to also mention that these opinions are my own and don't necessarily represent my company. So let's see, that is the forward. Okay. Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My background, I've worked in the software business for over 30 years, and 18 of those years were consulting, so I've worked for a lot of different organizations. So during this time, I've probably worked for about 30 different companies and organizations, and these are in a lot of different industries. I'll just go through them, and then there's going to be a test afterwards. Software as a service, manufacturing, defense, banking, magazine publishing, computer software, environmental research, biotech, medical devices, spacecraft, solar energy, satellite TV, retail, and government. Okay, so that's a lot. And these are very different businesses, but the one thing they have in common is data. They all use data to create value. And so what I like to do is to architect and build solutions that will help create that value. All right, so basically, so I worked with lots of different types of data solutions, and I think, first of all, we can kind of categorize all data as either operational or analytical, and of course it can be both, but operational is the data you use to run your day-to-day operations. Analytical, it helps you find out what happened, what is happening, and hopefully what's going to happen. And then in additional, there are issues of real-time data where you've got data that's coming at you usually really quickly, and you need to make decisions. You need to make decisions right now based on the data you're getting. And then along, the next thing is big data. I've been working in big data for a few years, and I think as data collection, as more companies are able to collect data and store it, it's a lot cheaper. They are collecting a lot more data, and they're looking for solutions to get insight from all that data. So again, big data, what is it? There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of different definitions of it, but I like the classic 3 V's, high volume, high velocity, high variety, and big data usually has one or more of those descriptions to it. And the next thing I've been working on is data science. It's like, how do you find out what's in that data. You've got all this data and you're looking for insights to help you run your organization better. And data science is really about, right, using the scientific method for gaining insights. You know, science, hypothesis, experimentation, results, blah, blah, blah. It's, instead of intuition and looking and saying, gee, that graph looks really neat. It's more scientific than what we've done in the past. And being that I worked in BI, data warehousing for a long time, I appreciate data science because the technologies, the techniques from the past really don't cut it that well. They kind of, you know, it gives you a single view into your data, and data science actually allows you to explore and discover new things. So, all right, next. Okay, so here's who I work for. I work for the SaaS division of Citrix. So you can see we have the products GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToAssist, ShareFile, all these great products. And in the words of our marketing people, we are a market-leading global provider of web collaboration, remote access, data sharing, and IT support software as a service. So another way to say this is that we provide software services through the cloud on a subscription basis. And if you watch TV, listen to the radio, read magazines, I'm sure you've heard of us, and hopefully you're using our products. All right, so talk about our big data problem at Citrix. So SaaS division in particular, we generate lots of data because we have online services like GoToMeeting. We've got millions of people who have meetings, and we collect data on those sessions. And we've got structured data that lives in databases, mostly Oracle. We've got databases with literally thousands of tables that have anywhere from a few to maybe hundreds of millions of rows. We've got log files, literally hundreds of terabytes of semi-structured data and log files that contain billions and even trillions of pieces of data that we collect during sessions that we can extract and analyze. We also have internally generated like spreadsheets, other types of files. And then there's external data. There's there's external data sources, like let's say we're doing an analysis of who's using our product and where they are. We can take an IP address, we can match it to a database that does IP geolocation. And we also have real-time data. We monitor systems as things are happening. So, okay, so anyway, so I was looking for, so after taking inventory of what we had, I said, okay, I've got to find a solution. What can we do with this data? How can we process it? How can we gain insights? And so anyway, and I want to say, you know, in choosing a solution, there's really, and I came up with 3 P's. There are 4 P's. There's 4 things you need to look at in a solution. The first is the power. What can this solution actually do for you? Productivity. Is this productive? Am I wasting a lot of time? Is it burning a lot of hours trying to get a solution? How does it perform? Does this make good use of my computing resources? Does this thing run for hours and days? And price. So where did I start? Well, of course, Oracle. I've been working with Oracle for practically forever, 27 years to be exact. So I started when I was in diapers. And so I figured, you know, the first thing is, well, let's take all this data and put it into a data warehouse. That's what I've done in the past. And the company already had a data warehouse, so I thought, great, I'll just add some more fact and dimension tables. But after doing a little prototyping and testing, I realized this really wasn't going to be such a good idea. And here's why. Oh, sorry, I didn't change this slide. Okay. So typically Oracle would be what's called a roll-up solution, a relational OLAP, where you're basically doing ad hoc joins of tables. And of course, problem is that some of these tables would end up with tens, hundreds of millions, and billions of rows of data, and that's not really fast. And you know, when you try to do a join on something like that on a very large Oracle server, it runs for a long time anyway. So to really get performance out of Oracle, you have to spend lots and lots and lots of money. Oracle licenses are very expensive. The hardware is very expensive, and you know, a solution like Oracle has a lot of great features that you don't really need when you're analyzing data. You know, ACID, high concurrency, all those kinds of things that we just want to go through lots of data and get answers. So And since all the data has to be stored in relational database tables, the ETL, the transformation process, is really long and complicated to get it in there. And then here's the big one: log files. You've got log files, and you've got to get value out of them. You've got to pull these messages out. How do you parse that out? Oracle doesn't really have any tools for that. So we still need a third-party tool, or we've got to write something in a programming language to do that. And then once you get data into an Oracle database, what can you do with it? Your analytic capabilities in SQL are limited. There's just so much you can do. You can't really do any real cool data science, machine learning stuff. All right, so the next thing is, I thought, okay, well, I need a solution that's specifically, that's designed to handle this kind of big data stuff. And so naturally, I looked at Hadoop. That's what everybody's talking about, right? It's the hot thing. So to start with, being the technical analytic guy that I am, I said, well, I don't want the sales stuff. I want to actually look at this. So I got a book, and I started reading. And, read the concepts, and I said, okay, how do I do it? Let me look at your code examples. How do we do this stuff? So of course, in the book, they have a real simple example. Here's how you do something really simple. And I looked through it, and I just, put my head down, closed my eyes, and said, good grief, why do they have to make it so complicated? This is really hard just to do simple things. So I was pretty discouraged. The thing is, again, the P's, productivity. It's really hard to get productive, and, it just didn't seem like a good solution. It seemed like a big step backwards for me. So again, you do everything in Java, and Java is great for software engineering. It's a terrible language for data processing, which is what this is. You can use other things like Python, but it's still really not the best, I guess, tool set. And then also, the whole concept of MapReduce, it just seemed like so much extra work to actually do all this stuff just to, do stuff. To process data, you had to go through all these gyrations to actually build something useful. And still, back to the other thing, log files. I got all these log files. I got hundreds of different types of messages. How do I parse them? Well, Java, regular expressions, it's just a ton of work still. So I really wasn't that impressed with it. So the next thing is I heard about Pig, which sits on top of Hadoop and gives you sort of a high-level language, kind of like ECL, but it's a high-level language that allows you to do Hadoop stuff at a high level rather than write all this low-level MapReduce. So I thought, wow, this is really exciting. So I got a Pig book, and I started reading through it. And so I went through the section on language basics, and I read through that. And then once I got through that, I realized, oh, this is it. Basics, that's all it is. The language doesn't do a whole lot. And so if you really wanted to do anything kind of complicated or kind of cool, you had to extend the language. You had to write your own. Functions in Java, or worse yet, you had to drop down into MapReduce again. So we were right back into the same place. So yeah, I wasn't very impressed with that. So then I kept searching for solutions and Googling things and looking at different companies that claim to be big data companies and seeing what their products did. And lo and behold, one night I was searching and I found something called HPCC systems from LexisNexis and this ECL thing, and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. And so I didn't expect a whole lot. I went through the website, and finally I said, well, I want to see some code, right? What does this thing actually look like? I want to see how you actually do it. So I found some ECL samples, and I was able to walk through them and actually understand what they were doing. And the language seemed very rich and very mature. And so then, which was really nice, the company was brave enough to actually give some non-trivial examples, and I was actually able to understand them, and they made sense. So at that point, I thought, okay, great. I'm going to download, reference manuals and stuff like that, and I'm the kind of guy that sits down and actually reads those things. And so, yeah, I looked at it, but the thing that really caught me was the pattern matching processing stuff. Again, I was looking at these log files, and I looked at this, and I said, this is so totally cool. You can't do this with regular expressions. The only thing I'd ever worked on that was close was something back in the Stone Ages called VAX-scan. It was a language that was designed for parsing things. And you could define grammars of statements, and it would take them apart and pull them apart. And I said, wow, this does exactly that. So at that point, I was really excited. I downloaded the VM, and I started writing an ECL program to go through these log files, and I was able to, within a few days, pull out 40 different, extract content from 40 different types of messages and write them out to structured files. So that was really cool. So at that point, I was really happy, and I started, I actually started writing real stuff and trying to solve real problems. So anyway, so that's kind of how I got into HPCC. So the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that we're working on at Citrix, or I have worked on at Citrix with big data. I can't tell you I can't tell you a lot about our business or what we found, but I'll kind of tell you what I did and the types of problems we've been solving. So, but first of all, I want to mention the environment I've been working in. So when I started, first, of course, there was the VM. Then I graduated to saying, well, let's see, I've got an old dual-core desktop computer sitting here with 4 gigs of RAM. I'll start with that. And I actually was able to do a lot of processing on that. I was really impressed with how fast it was. Then later, I was able to borrow a large blade server. We've got a large blade server with 12 cores, 64 gig of RAM, and we have a couple of solid-state drives on it and a 15 gig serial ATA disk array. And so that's kind of been my cluster. We basically have done some modifications to create multiple slaves so we can, but for the types of things we've been doing, I haven't actually been able to take all of the data we have, because if we did, we'd need a big cluster, but I've been able to go through many terabytes of data on just that one machine and do all kinds of cool things with it. So anyway, so and the other thing I discovered is that so you've got data from different sources, and one of our big sources, of course, was the Oracle database. What do you do? So neat thing I discovered is that you can dump, you can take you can write a SQL that says select star or select column from table, blah, and take a nice utility written in Java or anything, and you can dump that data at a rate of about 1 million rows. We can dump 1 million rows in about 6 to 10 seconds. So I was dumping these tables with like 300 million rows in them, and getting all that out. Once I got into CSV files, I was happy. Here, spray it. Go to work on it. So I got everything into the HPCC and went to work on it. So anyway, so that's the kind of stuff we did. There are a few interesting cases where there were things that I really couldn't do very well in ECL. For example, we had log files that were UU encoded, so that you basically ended up with ASCII data that wasn't binary, and they needed to be decoded back. And so that's really easy to do in C. I don't know how to do that in ECL. So the cool thing is I was able to use this thing called embedded C++ right in the ECL and write that, and that was really neat. So I've been able to do things like that. And then for visualizations, typically I've done all my analysis in HPCC, and then I take the results and I feed it into either Tableau or Excel to make pretty charts. So that's what I've done. Okay, so some of the studies. Okay, one of them we worked on was, I'm not really following here, am I? Okay. Product feature usage analysis for GoToMeeting and GoToAssist. Okay, so I had a group in marketing that came to me, and they wanted to say, they wanted to know, what features are popular and who uses those features in what way. So basically, I went through and I looked at data over about a 3-month period. I looked at all the sessions, organizer and attendees for GoToMeeting, and we did the same thing. GoToAssist is another product, of course, where you do remote support. You've got like a tech support person helping someone, connecting to their computer and fixing a bug or something. So. But I looked at the organizers and the attendees in these things, and I looked at their usage of these features. And this involved, again, dumping, hundreds of millions of rows out of Oracle into CSV files, and looking through lots and lots and lots of log data from different services that we run. So I was able, again, to parse all the relevant content out and take that data, cleanse it, do all kinds of cool joins and stuff like that. And the end result was we were able to slice and dice across different types of customer segments, trial versus paid. In other words, there's people that do the 30-day trial, and there's people that are actually paying for the subscription, so we were able to compare their usage. And then, of course, like new versus, new customers versus people who have been customers for a long time. And then we also looked at people that maybe canceled their account later versus people that were retained, and we could look at their usage on that too. So that was really neat. And also too, some of the data we collect we collect event data in Oracle, and some of it comes so fast and furious that we end up with like hundreds of millions of rows in these tables. So our DBAs go and they purge these things every few weeks. So I was actually several months prior to this, I would, like every few weeks, I would go and I would just dump it to a CSV file, dump it to another, and I'd end up with these, end up with like 1 billion rows of data, and then merge it all back together in ECL and go to work on it. So, so the next study I worked on had to do with, these aren't necessarily in order, but this is the order I'm presenting them. Trial usage patterns by converted and non-converted accounts. So in other words, we are looking at people that signed up for free trials, and we wanted to say, what are the usage patterns of someone who ultimately ends up signing up versus someone that's, a lot of people sign up for a free trial and will never use your product, or they'll use it once and then they'll forget about it. And anyway, so we looked at those kinds of patterns, and all that data actually came from Oracle. It wasn't, I didn't have any like others, so I could have actually written this in SQL, but the reality was, I think it was easier and it certainly was more efficient to dump all that data into flat files and work on an ECL. It's a very nice ETL tool. ETL, okay. Okay, and then another study we did, this was actually big with lots and lots of data. We have something once a year at Citrix called Hack Week, where if you're an engineer or if you're pretty much anybody there's a week where you can just like say, I think this is really cool, I want to work on it. So I got a team of people, there were about 5 of us. Most of them were in the R&D department. And we decided, gee, what can we do? We want to all work on something with big data. And so we said, customer retention, that's a big thing, right? Let's look at customer retention. If we can find factors that affect customer retention, the company will love us, right? So we really had, it was a 5-day session. We had 4 days to work on it, a day to present. And so we started this thing, and basically it was me. I'd been working with ECL for a couple of years, and then it was a bunch of other people who'd never seen it. And the cool thing was, within a day's time, they were all productive. I mean, so everybody, they were able to start with absolutely no knowledge, and I was able to say, oh yeah, look at this, look at this, look at this. And they were all actually writing code. And I mean, there's no way somebody could have jumped into Hadoop and done that. It was just, very, very productive. So yeah, we again dumped a lot of Oracle data to CSV. Customer retention data, we had spreadsheets, and then we had log files, and we actually looked at, many, many weeks of, we had over 1 terabyte of log data, and this was already pre-filtered log data. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of it, and we were able to, again, take our one big machine, and in a few hours, we were able to extract, I think, something like 15 billion statistical data points, and then we were able to go in. And basically it was like, okay, retention, retained versus non-retained. How does this one relate? How does that one relate? We were able to do lots and lots of analysis on that in a very short period of time. So that was a lot of fun. Another study, usage patterns of people using, okay, so when you do a GoToMeeting or WebEx or any product, WebEx is a bad word in our company, but anyway, so people have different ways to use audio. You can use the built-in voice over IP, or you can dial in on the phone. So I wanted to look at patterns, usage patterns of people using VoIP versus dial-in, and again, there was it was all data I was able to collect from the Oracle database. But I looked at things like what time of day it was, the day of the week, and things like that. I wanted to actually get into, where they were geographically. I could have taken the IP addresses, and we never got to that. But that would be another thing we'd like to do. See, what people in different countries, who uses what. And then finally, okay, a couple more patterns of session audio problems with GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. Okay, so sometimes audio problems come up, and I wanted to look at that and see, analyze them and find out, who was having the problems and what time of day and where they were and things about the customer. So I did something with that, and then the last one is kind of like, this is kind of what you guys do here, right? Fraud detection, right? So I looked at a couple things. With GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar, I looked at people who were, so one thing I was looking at what we call free trial abuse. Somebody who signs up for a 30-day free trial, and then 30 days later, when that's over, they sign up for another free trial, and there are ways they could do that. And so without getting into the specifics, I was able to identify, certain cases of massive trial abuse. And it's always a question, well, do we keep letting them use the product for free? Is it free advertising, or is it costing us money and all that? But anyway, that was the one thing. And then the other thing was spam activity, people using GoToWebinar as a spam platform. So you look at, gee, somebody had a webinar and they just sent out 20,000 emails. What are they doing? So stuff like that. So that was a neat study. And then finally, okay, so summary. So what I want to present, things that I've learned. Again, I think I already talked about, dumping Oracle into CSV files rather than actually writing the SQL queries. It was faster to just dump the data. Another thing I talked about too, I mentioned about HPCC being fast, and I don't have any real benchmarks, but like comparing it to Oracle, for example, an example is I know that I can't tell you about like one large join I was trying to do in Oracle that was joining, like 120 million rows to 40 million rows to another 50 million rows, and that is something that would run for probably take a couple of hours on a large Oracle server on really expensive hardware. I was able to do that on a small computer in just a few minutes. I mean, it's just really, really fast. And then also I want to say HPCC with ECL, I think is one of the best ETL platforms I've ever worked on. And I've done lots of ETL. I've used ETL tools for building data warehouses. And I think, you look at this as an analytic tool or whatever, but it's also just for doing ETL, just for transforming data. It's amazing. And the language is designed, to crunch data. It's exactly what it is. I mean, it's a purpose-built language and platform, and it's awesome. And again, and the last thing, doing analytics. ECL has support for all kinds of advanced analytics built in, and it can do it on really large data sets. And I just want to say, try doing that. Try taking a data frame with 1 billion rows in an R program to do something with it. You just can't. So anyway, it's great, and that's all I have to say. And any questions? Yes.
I was just curious, what was the outcome of your hack week?
The outcome of the hack week was we actually found, ideally we would have had about a year's worth of data to work with, and we didn't. But we basically found some preliminary things saying, this thing which we think would affect retention didn't, and a few things surprised us. And some of the things we'd say, well, this wasn't our fault. People on slow computers, for example, might have had a bad audio experience because there was a lot of high CPU usage, for example, and things were getting garbled, or they had a slow network connection and a lot of IP packets were dropping. And then we found like certain features we had that were really sticky, like people that use this feature, for example, were more likely to stick with us than people that didn't. So it was interesting. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I have. And, again, with any company, there's politics and stuff like that. But, there have been people looking at Hadoop within the company. There's actually people doing stuff. I have to say, I don't think they're actually getting anything done. But that would be the other thing. So, and again, there's the Oracle BI world. Oh, yeah, there is another thing. The data warehouse team, when they finally came to me, they said, John, we've got these tables with billions of rows, and these joins are taking a really long time. So they're actually playing with Amazon Redshift, a column store database. They're doing some stuff with that. But for real analysis, it's basically either this or Hadoop, I think. And good luck with Hadoop, right? Right. Okay.
I have a question here.
I see. Are we? Oh. Oh, do you want to?
Okay, good. Is there any feature that you are really missing in HPCC? Anything that you would like to see done that it doesn't do as well, or some enhancements that you could benefit from?
Yeah, one thing I'd really like to do, because I was mentioning the fact that I see it as actually an ETL tool, easy integration to like databases and stuff. In other words, I'd like to see if I could treat Oracle as a as a spray data source, and I could output to it or something, or anything, right? Just really easy integration like that, I think would be really neat. So, yeah, I'd love to see that. And there's probably, if I think about it, there's probably more, but that's probably the the thing that comes to the top of my mind.
Hi. Over here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm curious about your fraud detection. Do you guys do it in real time or near real time, or do you batch it, and why?
Both. We've got obviously there's fraud detection that goes on in real time. They obviously look at things like credit cards and stuff like that. So there's both. I mean, there's obviously stuff. I mean, like when you try to catch spammers, you want to catch them pretty quickly before they can do damage. And again, they're not spamming us. They're trying to use us as a spam platform. So we want to shut them down before we get before our domain gets a bad name on it. But there's things like that we do in real time. And then there's other stuff where we go, like the study I did was not real time. It was after the fact. But I was looking at like, how many people are using, are abusing the free trial policy, and stuff like that. So that was sort of a batch thing. And then from that, we're able to say, well, how are they doing? And okay, so here now we can put some real-time checks in, right, to actually to do that. I see a hand. Okay, yes. What's that? It sounds like you graduated from the virtual machine at some point. Yeah, I did. I was curious, what was your experience installing and configuring the cluster? Did you run into any roadblocks? Yeah, okay, so graduating from the VM, obviously, we ran out of, it wasn't enough to do lots and lots of data, but doing a simple Linux install was actually pretty easy. I actually had someone else do it. I'm not really that good at that, but it was really a pretty simple process. I'm still struggling with a new, I guess, 5.0 with all the hooks and all the language integrations. I haven't quite got that one to work yet, but I've been able to install it on a number of different platforms, and it's been pretty straightforward. Is there anybody else here? Okay. Oh, there's a hand. Yes.
Any thoughts? I mean, you've obviously brought a lot of other people along. Any thoughts on the easiest way to get them up to speed, where you pointed them and how they did that?
Really, what? All the stuff you can download, like the Kevin Bacon book and all that. I mean, seriously, I took one of the guys who was in marketing research, and I told him about it, and he set up a small system, and he got that out, and he read through it and got that, and started looking at the ECL reference manual and went to work. I mean, it's really easy. Your documentation is really good. Tutorials are good. I mean, the more the better to get people interested. But I mean, I think it's really pretty easy to learn. Okay, I think I'm out of time. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, John. That was great. Really cool to hear things that we've heard at LexisNexis for years, right, about comparing performance to Oracle, comparing it to Hadoop. And when you hear it from your own company, it's not it's good. But hearing it from someone from the outside really hits home. So pleased to hear all the progress you made at Citrix with HPCC.